would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which I live and work, the Gundungurra land and people. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I also want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which you, our listeners, are joining us from today. I recognise the deep connection that First Nations people have to this land, their enduring culture, and their commitment to the preservation and care for their country. This land was never ceded, and it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Hey there, and welcome to Beyond the Surface, the podcast where we explore the stories of people who have survived religious trauma, left high control or cult communities, and are deconstructing their faith. I'm your host, Sam, and each week I'll talk with individuals who have taken the brave step to start shifting their beliefs that might have once controlled and defined their lives. Join us as we dig into their experiences, the challenges they've faced, and the insights they've gained. Whether you're on a similar journey or you're just curious about these powerful stories, you're in the right place. This is Beyond the Surface. Welcome, Rachel. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. It's really great to be here.
I like to start with some context for people who may not know you by your picture and your name and things like that that they've seen for the podcast art. Where in the world are you at the moment?
I am in Tauranga, New Zealand. It's very
Beautiful.
cold. Beautiful
Yes.
day, but it's very cold.
Yes, I can relate. I
Yeah.
just finished recording with someone who was in Canada and it was very warm over there, and it's nice to talk to somebody who is equally freezing on the other end of this recording. So, it is nice. Beautiful. Well, I love to start these episodes with a really broad, vague, open-ended question, just to see where people like to start. And so that is, where does your story start?
Well, I think a lot of people don't know about me that I did not grow up in Bill Gothard's
Okay.
IBLP ATI homeschooling program,
Yeah.
but I did grow up in the evangelical church.
Yeah.
So I was christened into the Anglican church, and then my parents left that when I was about 5 years old,
Yeah.
um, and went into the evangelical church. So that's pretty much probably where
Mhm.
it starts. Yeah.
What do you remember about that sort of flavor of Christianity that you were raised in? Did you love it? Were you drawn to it? Was it just something that your family did?
It was full immersion.
Okay.
And yeah, I grew up in a little town in the South Island of New Zealand that was the church that I belonged to was our community. Like, we went to school together, our parents were friends, we went on holidays with our teachers. It was just really full immersion into the church. So it was my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did life look like in that space? Was it, a stereotypical sort of, church on Sundays, Bible studies, youth groups, like that sort of thing, or was it much more controlling or immersive than that?
I've always said that I had a really happy childhood because I didn't know anything different, but I did have a really happy childhood. And it was just, yes, it was the whole church on Sunday. And then I got to a certain age, the local church began a Christian school associated with the church. So that was my school. And my parents were leaders in the church as well. So we often had meetings at our home as well.
Yeah.
And the church was very active in Pentecostal evangelical churches throughout New Zealand. So we saw a lot of sometimes even international speakers come to our church, or very well known ministers or pastors from New Zealand, from the evangelical world. So often we'd have them stay in our home as well. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I feel like that was always, I didn't grow up in the church that I landed in, but I know from other families it was always like a very influential thing to be able to be the family that hosted the speakers and things like that. So did you feel like that, or was it just a very normal part of what you were experiencing, or did it feel like your family had some weight in this space?
It felt very normal.
Yeah.
My parents are very social, very outgoing at the time. So yeah, it felt normal. And then we moved away from that town to Auckland, which was a larger city. And the same thing just continued there really. It was
Yeah.
just, and my dad became a pastor, and yeah, it was just it was my world.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
did you feel like it was just like the faith of your family, or did it feel like it was yours? Like, who was God to you during this period of time as you were growing up?
So I met God when I was 5, in my best friend's neighbor's house at an after school. And after school, I don't even know what it was called.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I was very young, very innocent, and very trusting of God and Jesus,
Yeah.
and so I've always felt like I've had a relationship, a spiritual relationship my whole life.
Yeah.
And it wasn't my family's, it was my own. It was a very personal, um, yeah, intimate thing for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And did that shift or change as you sort of went through into like high school? High school, I feel like is a moment for a lot of people because you start to sort of fall into that identity forming place. You start to have relationships. It's where we get purity culture thrown at us, all of that sort of thing. What was that like?
No, high school was not my moment for
Right.
that. No.
Oh,
No, I had quite a normal high school. I had a boyfriend. I had very good friends. They were mostly friends that I had within the church youth group. They were in that social group, so they were in my social group at school as well.
yeah.
Um, yeah, a purity culture. Yes, there was that teaching that came right through the evangelical church
Mm.
too. So yeah, I did have that, but it wasn't predominant in my life at that time. You know
Mm.
what I mean? Like I was still allowed to have a boyfriend. I was still
Yeah.
allowed to go out to movies and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So
how do you look back on that? Because it's pretty rare in the stories that I hear a lot of the time because, that purity culture, very shame-based messaging, women are responsible for men's behavior and that sort of thing is a very common thing in a lot of those, evangelical spaces. Um, do you look back on the fact that that wasn't a super prominent part? Like, how do you look back on that?
it was still quite a controlled thing though. Like I often say to my childhood friends are still very good friends of mine, and they do tell me that my parents were quite strict. so
Oh,
but to me it felt normal, right? To me it was just normal.
yeah.
Um, and yes, there were things I wasn't allowed to do. Like one of my biggest regrets in life is that I was not allowed to go to the Dire Straits concert when I was 16.
Oh,
All my friends were going, and I wasn't allowed to go.
yeah.
So yeah, there were little things like that, but it wasn't actually until later, when we got immersed into Bill Gothard's program in IBLP, that looking back on it, you realize that there were restrictions, but I still had some freedoms,
Yeah.
but that the indoctrination of things like purity culture, um, is still there. It's still very much a part of how
Mm,
you function as a person and how you view the world.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Uh,
so often baked into the water so much that sometimes you don't realize that it's there in the first place as well. So,
yeah.
um,
Yeah.
okay. So, how did we land in IBLP and how did this eventuate? How old were you? Yeah.
So I decided to go to Australia with Youth with the Mission when I was
Oh,
17.
good old YWAM.
Yeah. Yeah, good old IWAM. I,
We say good old YWAM, she's not all that good.
I had a great time. Yeah, it was just, I had been part of a lot of evangelical para groups, missions groups, and um, I just wanted to. I didn't know what to do with my life after I left school.
Yeah.
Um, so went to Australia with YWAM, and it was while I was over there that my parents met. Well, they went along to Bill Gothard's basic seminar that was coming. Well, he had brought it over to Auckland in New Zealand,
Right.
and they rang me and said, "Oh, you've got to go. We love this. You've got to go to the next one when it comes out. You'll just, it's so good." And
Mm.
I remember going to my American friend at the time, Danielle, and said to her, she was with me in Australia, and I said, "Have you ever heard of this guy? My parents are really into him."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh yeah, I think we've got some of his stuff at church." Like
Right.
his materials, even at that point, at that early stage, were in mainstream Christianity.
Yeah.
We're heading in that direction anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did my thing in YWAM, came back home, and then I worked for a bit, and then his seminar,
Mm.
must have brought a seminar out again, and so we went along to the basic seminar. I did it for the whole week. I don't remember much about it, except at the end, my sister really wanted to go to his headquarters, so my parents uh, organized an interview with Bill,
Right.
and I was just tagging along, like I was just on the end of the row,
Yeah.
not really interested, ready to get back to my life. I had a great job that I was really enjoying. I'd had a few offers for
Mm.
apprenticeships, and I was just in a really good place.
Yeah.
And so we met him that night, um, and he spent the whole meeting focused on me, pretty much, like asking me questions about my life and where I worked. And at the time I was working for the Christian radio station, Radio Rima.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I said that, his reaction was just like, "Oh, we have to get you out of that place. You can't work there. That's not a good place for a Christian
Oh,
girl to be working." I
right.
was taken aback too. It's like, what? How can you say that? I just like, what?
Yeah.
And it was the rock music.
I mean, not to mention that this, like, in this situation, this guy is just like this random person who thinks that he has the right to tell you where you can and can't
I
work is
know. Yeah.
ludicrous. Like, aside from anything else, like the absolute like sense of entitlement that comes just in that tiny moment is crazy. I do want to like cut for a moment and go for people. I mean, I think most people know the Duggars, right? Like everybody thinks of the
Hmm.
Duggars when we think of IBLP. But for people who maybe don't know about IBLP and Bill Gothard, what was it that your parents were responding to? What was it that they were saying is so great about what he was teaching?
I think at the time my sister really wanted to homeschool. Like I had finished my schooling, but she was still in school, and Bill had a large group of young people with him,
Yeah.
and they were beautiful, just beautiful young people who looked like they had their lives together. I think that really appealed to them,
Yeah.
and it certainly appealed to my sister.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you feel in that moment when you were first meeting him before you ever like you really knew a whole heap about this guy? How did you feel about being around him?
I don't really remember how I felt at the time. Like he was just, I kind of was just ready to go home.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm a good Christian New Zealand girl. Like I've been raised to be polite. So he's asking me all these questions and I'm giving him the answers. Um and then he said he wanted me to go to the USA with him. Well, I think he was going to Australia and then to the USA or back to headquarters. in Chicago, and he asked if I could go with him. Like he wanted me to drop everything right then and there, and he would take me take me with him to Australia and then on to the USA. And my dad's like, hey, hang on a second, she's got a job, she can't just up and leave.
Yeah.
So, and then he's like, and what about her sister, who actually is the one that wants to go? Um, so
What
he
did
ended
you
up,
think in that moment?
well, I was kind of keen to go to the US because I had just come back from there. I'd been to the YWAM University in Hawaii,
Mm.
and I had been offered an apprenticeship or two jobs in New Zealand here actually, and I was trying to decide which one I was going to take
Mm.
because they were both great. They were both great jobs. Um, so I kind of thought, oh well, I could take 3 months off over the summer, over our summer,
Mm.
go and have this time in the US, and then come back and start my new job, whatever I decide to do. And he was offering to pay for it. So
Right. Okay. So it was like
why
there was
wouldn't
part of you
you?
going like, great, free 3 month paid
Yeah,
holiday in the
yeah.
US.
Why wouldn't you, right?
Yeah. I mean, it absolutely, I mean, I think it looks appealing. It may not look appealing right now that with the state of the US, but I think at the time it would have felt appealing to almost anybody, right?
Mm,
To have
mm.
somebody offer something that seemed so extravagant. Um, yeah. Was there any discomfort in that, or did it just feel like, was there any weirdness? Like, why is this guy offering it to me?
It felt like a whirlwind. That's what it
Yeah.
felt like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I remember we got out of there and back to the car, and we are kind of like,
Like a
what
head.
in the world just happened? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think Bill he has incredible powers of persuasion,
Mm,
and he has this way of kind of presenting an idea and then persuading you to go along with it.
yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
think any leader in that type of position has those tactics, and we know and we see them play out in a whole host of different places, cults, high control religion, one-on-one intimate relationships where there is that excessive, over the top affection and love bombing and like giving and incessant questioning and interest and all of those sorts of things to make the other person feel like equally this person has taken interest in me, but also to just like make your head spin that you can't really
Mm,
pay attention to any of this is weird. Why is
mm.
this happening? Um,
And yeah, and I think he's put up on a pedestal too, like he's this man who's just had thousands of people come and listen to him speak, and
yeah.
he's giving you attention.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you give him the authority that he, supposedly deserves in that moment because
Mm,
everybody else has, yeah, he's on that pedestal. So you think that he deserves that authority in the moment, right?
right.
Yeah.
Mm.
How long was it between that conversation and when you went?
2 weeks.
Wow, that is so
Yeah.
quick. Did
Yeah.
that 2 weeks feel equally like just a constant whirlwind from that moment?
Yeah, because I had to give notice at my work, and
Yeah,
I think it was another. I was just very rushed, very kind of just mind blowing
yeah.
time, really. Yeah.
And were you still having contact with Bill and that and like his team in that window of time, or was
Not
it?
that I,
Yeah,
not that I recall.
yeah.
No. Mm.
How did you feel when you like in that moment where you are about to go for this 3 month trip to the US? How did you feel?
I mean, my sister and I were excited about it. I was excited to go back to the US. I had enjoyed my time there.
Yeah,
And it was a different part of America as well. So
yeah,
yeah, and we were going to be having a white Christmas, or hopefully having a white Christmas. We'd
yeah.
never had that before.
Yes.
So yeah, there was a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
goal of anybody who is in our part of the world, right? To have a white Christmas one year.
Yeah.
I still feel like it's a little bit of a goal, honestly.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so what happened when you got there?
So when we got there, he was still away.
Yeah.
I don't know where he was, but we just kind of got ourselves settled into a house, and we were in a house with other girls. Um, so the way headquarters in Chicago was set up was that he had streets of houses. Um, and some were for the girls and some were for the guys, and then there were staff houses and
Yeah.
guest houses. So it's a little empire right there in Oak Brook, Illinois.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, just beautiful grounds and beautiful buildings and right in the middle of the city. It's interesting that Oak Brook is also the place where the McDonald's takeaways headquarters is.
Oh, what a random place. Oh, I mean,
But very, very affluent.
when you sort of saw these like rows, like you just said, like a little like empire almost, like,
Mm.
did you think that was normal?
Just took it for granted.
Yeah.
Like, we're just young, barely out of our childhood, and
Yeah.
you trust these people. You trust that your parents have made the right decision, first of all,
Yeah.
and even joining this thing. Um, and then you trust these leaders and these people that are,
Yeah.
yeah, they've got this hotline to God, and
Mm.
mm,
And up until that point, had you ever, like, and I probably know the answer to this because it's usually the answer, but had you ever seen or had anybody ever said anything about the fact that actually there can be real harm in faith spaces?
no.
Yeah. So, like, you have like this clouded, rose-colored vision, right? Of,
Mm,
this is a godly man. And so,
mm,
um, of course it's okay. We make sense of it, I think,
yeah.
because of that.
I I think too, because I had a personal relationship with Bill, or ended up having a personal relationship with him. Anybody that spoke against him, I would immediately defend him.
Yeah.
Like, my loyalty was, just so strongly
Mm.
with him, that and any kind of criticism that came his way, it's just like, he could explain it away. I could explain it away. He could get, oh, he's not really like that, or oh, they don't understand what's behind this. Like, I had a friend in Australia, well, she was a Canadian friend, but she was living in Australia at the time. She phoned me a few months into my stay, really worried about me,
Yeah.
and worried about this codependent relationship that I had.
Mm.
And it's just, I remember saying to her, oh no, he's not like that. He's not like that at all. You don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Mm.
And so, what did life look like while you were over there? Like, when did it go from this is really lovely and this is really great to something a little bit different?
Like, I was in a position of power
Yeah.
almost immediately. As soon as he came back, I was his his correspondence secretary. So
Yeah.
I I worked in the same space as him. We worked very, very long hours. Often we'd be up like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning
Oh, wow.
and work right through till 11, 12 o'clock at night, with maybe a lunch break halfway through and some dinner. But we'd travel.
Yeah.
He had a sort of a custom made van, that we did a lot of traveling in. So, and it was quite glamorous. It was very glamorous, actually. We
Yeah.
got to stay in really expensive hotels. Like, I remember the first time I went to Dallas, Texas. It's
Yeah.
just like, oh my God, I love it here. It's like
Yeah.
fulfilled every expectation I ever had of what Dallas, Texas would look like. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I
And
had everything I could have possibly need.
yeah. So, I mean, what was that relationship with him like? Because it sounds, like you had a friend who referred to it as codependent. And so, like, who did you become in that space? Like, or who did he um turn you into, essentially? Like,
Yeah, so I went there very I was very outgoing. I had a wide circle of friends. I even had quite a bit of life experience, traveling overseas.
Yeah.
And by the time, like, I can even see it in photos of myself, from when I first got there, and in photos of me when I left, just completely shut down. Like, my world just kind of shrunk.
Yeah.
And I put it down, purely down now, to the isolation that
Mm.
um, I had in that position, and also his predatory grooming
Mm.
was such that it kind of bonded me to him only. Like,
Mm.
he was my best friend. If I had any problems, he was the one I went to in the end. That's how it works, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I assume you also like he also positioned himself as not just the person to go to, but the person who also had all of the answers.
Yes, absolutely. Like, I remember even saying to him at one point that I was like Mary in the Bible, just wanting to sit at the feet of Jesus and learn.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
he had answers for everything.
yeah. And so what do you like, did it feel, and this is a weird question because I think anybody who has not experienced like any sort of like spiritual abuse doesn't necessarily understand how insidious it is, and you don't always realize it until afterwards. But were you aware that any of this felt not okay whilst you were in it?
Yes, there were times that
Yeah,
I I did not feel comfortable, um, and yeah, there were definitely times like that.
yeah. What
Mm,
was it like to try and reason your way out of that? Because I imagine it's not a safe space to be able to even acknowledge, sit, explore those thoughts where we go, hey, this doesn't feel right, this doesn't seem okay. And so,
mm.
what was it like to have to try and either suppress or reason or make sense of that?
Um, yeah, so there was a lot of overthinking. I'm a big overthinker, and I think the one thing that I really persuaded myself was that this was a man of God,
Yeah,
and anything that I felt uncomfortable with or didn't like, for me to question that would be to go against God,
yeah,
because here is someone that God has put in a position of power. And
mm,
look at all these lives he's changing. Look at all these people he's influencing. He
mm,
has, so that was kind of where my mind went. And because I'd been raised in the evangelical church, and I'd even been a missionary, like my parents had been missionaries since I was about 10, 11 years old.
yeah,
Um, the goal is not yourself.
yeah,
It's not your safety,
mm,
and it's not your desires. It's the desires of God. It's what is best for God, what is best for the ministry, what is best for reaching lost souls.
yeah, yeah,
And yeah, and so that's where your loyalty lies, that's where your dedication lies, your devotion.
yeah. And so, did you feel like, whilst, because obviously you're working for him, but you didn't grow up in this space, you weren't taught the IBLP teachings ongoing. And so, did you feel like you adopted those teachings being in that space, or was it
Yeah.
that you still held the teachings that you grew up with, but you worked and were groomed by Bill Gothard?
So I still held on to a lot of the teachings that I did grow up with, but it was, I think, being in that environment and being constantly surrounded by that,
Mm.
it's a very gradual kind of, you just get immersed into it. It just becomes, like little things like, um, the uniform,
Yeah,
the navy and white, the skirt had to be so long and the top had to be, modest. And
Mm.
So little things like that kind of I rationalized, like, oh well, that's just the standard, that's just what he expects us to do for in the office. So I can do that,
Yeah.
you know. I remember early on in my stay there, I gave a book to one of my roommates, and it was a fictionalized book on Ruth in the Bible,
Mm.
and that was a big no-no. Like I could tell she
Oh.
really didn't like, she did not like that book.
What
but
was
it
it about the book
but
that
it
wasn't
was just one of
okay?
those. Well, it's fictionalized for a
Oh, right.
start, and it probably had romance.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, to be fair,
Yeah,
yes, the
yeah,
story of Ruth and Boaz would have been turned into a romance book very easily, I suspect.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, okay. So, I mean,
So
yeah, that shows, I guess, like the literalism that is in that space.
and just how gradual it was. Like when
Yeah,
I give her this book soon after I arrived. Oh, hey, this is a great book,
yeah,
really cool read. And I just knew immediately that it
yeah.
wasn't the right thing to have done. So you adjust, don't you? You just adjust the way you.
Mm,
So it was little things like that over that period of time that gradually wear you down,
mm,
change the way you think.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Mm.
that adjustment is, did it feel like a just a slow censorship and erasure of like your sense of self so that you could just conform to whatever the standards were that were set for you now?
Well, looking back on it now, certainly,
Yeah,
but at the time, I didn't think of it like that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Mm.
throughout all of this, because like, at the beginning of um the episode I asked you sort of like what your relationship with God was like and who God was for you. How did that shift now that you were in this space? Like what was it like whilst you were in this space and did it change?
So you're asking how my faith changed over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that took a long time. And I was very angry with God for many, many years.
Yeah.
Um, and walked away from my faith at one point. I just had to hang on to what I had to get back to that point of like, what do I believe in? You
Mm,
know, what out of everything I've grown up with and everything I've been taught,
yeah.
if I took it all away, what am I left with?
Mm,
Um, so I had to just strip it all right back really and
yeah.
start over.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just went back to that, I still had a relationship with Jesus.
Mm.
That's always been my anchor in life, if you like. So that's where I started.
Do you feel like while you were working with Bill that he became like God while you were there?
He was certainly treated that way.
Yeah.
Um, I I don't know that I could say that I saw him as God, but I certainly saw him as somebody special to God.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah.
Mm. But definitely treated that way by the staff.
Yes, yeah, because I get,
Mm.
people who, I mean, either get put on a pedestal or put themselves on that pedestal, usually start
Mm.
to become the God-like figure, or at least um, have like a direct hotline to God, and so they might as well be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
how did your view of him shift and change? And it sounds like what started as a 3 month stint in the US did not end that way.
No, it didn't. I ended up being there a year.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I have a very dramatic story on how I ended up coming home. But,
Share
but we
away.
can
Oh, yeah, I mean,
uh,
what did leaving look like? And because you are so immersed in that space, even just like the idea of leaving would have just been, a whole thing in itself, I imagine.
I would never have
Yeah,
left, never, unless this thing intervened in my life. It was out of my control and it was out of Bill's control.
right.
Otherwise, I'd still be there, probably. I was so loyal to him. He was just my world, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what intervened?
The US government
Oh yeah, that
intervened.
helps.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this powerful thing that intervened in this?
No.
Right, yeah, that'll
Like
do it.
Bill Gothard is not more powerful than the US government. Let me just say that, right?
Oh gosh. Although I'm sure he thought he was, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did the
Yeah.
US government intervene?
So I had an extension on my visa, so I was there legally.
Yeah.
But then Bill gets invited to go to Taiwan uh, for a
Mhm.
couple of weeks of ministry, and he wanted me to go with him. And so I'm like, okay, yep, that's fine, we can go. And I hand my passport over to the staff to take care of all my visas and everything.
Yeah.
And they didn't get this one little thing that I was supposed to get in my passport, which was at the time the re-entry permit.
Right.
Um, it was this tiny little piece of paper that I was supposed to get because I had a multiple indefinite visa to come and go as I please, but you had to get this little thing. So coming back from Taiwan, didn't have the little piece of paper, and I got called aside for questioning, um, about 8 hours
Oh my goodness.
of interrogation. So yeah, it was intense. I never want to go through that again.
Yeah.
Um, and they were going to send me back to New Zealand that night, but Bill intervened. He had a friend who was a senator in Hawaii because we came back through Hawaii, and, and they got it changed to have a hearing in Chicago.
Right.
And that's a whole nother story in itself. But we ended up, I stayed on for a little bit longer while we waited for the hearing,
Mm.
but I ended up coming back to New Zealand before that happened.
Mm.
So that
Right.
was how I got out of there.
Good old technicality.
Yeah, yeah.
Like a technicality of like, I mean, that technicality is like, deeply horrific and traumatizing, I imagine, but like for it to be something super tiny and simple that had this massive effect and impact on what
Mm,
happened for the next trajectory of your life and your world, um,
mm,
is it's crazy to think that something so small can have such a big impact in that moment.
yeah. And I I was angry
Yeah.
about it for a very, very long time. I was angry with God about it for a very long time. So I wasn't banned from going back to the US, but it makes it very difficult for me to get back in there.
Right.
But now I see it as it was a rescue. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it hadn't been for that, I don't know where I would be. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the anger at God, was that because it felt like you felt like you were being kept from going back into that space and doing what you thought you were supposed to be doing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had a pretty charmed life up until then. Like,
Yeah.
oh God, I've done all this stuff for you, and you do this to me, kind of thing. So,
Yeah, I imagine there would have been a lot of confusion there. Like, why? Like, why would this happen? I think a lot of the
mm,
time, when you are in that space, you think that those, divine punishments, so to speak, go to people who are not, you know, living like holy
mm,
doing the things for the Lord, that's where all of that lies. But when that happens to you and you were doing the thing that you thought you were supposed to be doing, I imagine there's so much confusion there as well.
yeah. Plus, I remember blaming myself,
Yeah,
like, oh, God's got rid of me. God has got me out of this ministry because I've gotten too close to Bill Gothard,
yeah,
and God doesn't like it. So it wasn't anyone else's fault. I'm putting that blame back onto myself.
yeah.
Um,
So being back in New Zealand, how did that change the connection that you had with Bill?
it didn't really change the connection for quite a few years. He maintained regular contact with me. It was weekly contact quite a while.
Yeah.
And I worked with the organisation here in New Zealand, and then my family
Mm.
were appointed as directors of IBLP here in New Zealand as well as the homeschooling program. So I was, I was still very much part of everything that happened, and Bill was still keeping in contact with me,
Yeah.
and stringing me along too, like um, kept saying, "Oh, when you come back to headquarters." Yeah, getting me to do things like get my driver's license, so when I come back to headquarters, I can drive, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he strung me along for quite a few years.
Yeah, still trying to maintain that sense of control, like holding onto the leash, so to speak. Like
Yeah,
you can't get too far away. Like I've got to keep pulling you in to make sure that like you're still here and still under what I want you to do, that control.
yes, yeah, yeah. And I wrote to him regularly as well.
Yeah.
When yeah,
Did it
when I
change
left
the way that you saw
headquarters.
him?
Um,
Not being in that daily, day-to-day, like in his presence kind of contact?
no, it didn't really change the way I saw him at all
Yeah.
until probably a few years in. He had been talking about me going back to headquarters,
Mm.
but then his father requested a period of separation for us,
Oh,
um, 2 years,
right.
and his father passed away during that time, and Bill had forgotten about it, and that was the first kind of that
Yeah.
was the first moment that things started to like make me think about this relationship and
Mm.
what had been going on. But it still took a long time for me to kind of
Yeah.
understand what had been happening. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the reason that I asked the question about whether not being in that day-to-day contact with him shifted is because I think a lot of people have this perception that if you aren't in the same space or you've been removed or you've left that space, that it makes it easier to deal with the connection or what was happening or anything like that. But it's so deeply embedded in you that it takes so much more to unlearn and unravel what all of that was. And so
Mm,
in that moment where you're like thinking, oh, like this is maybe not what I thought it was.
mm.
What started to pull on that thread? Like what was that like for you?
I think for me it was a feeling of betrayal almost, like um, but it was still very subtle at the time. Like
Mm.
I was still so loyal to him, and he was still such a big part of my life. Like he was pulling the strings all the way from the other side of the world in my life. Um, and it's something I find very difficult to deal with now. Like it's probably one of the hardest things for me to come to terms with is just how controlling he was,
Yeah.
even after I was back in a different country.
Mm. I mean,
Mm.
like it is, and I mean, that's like the insidious, and like, we have that imagery of like getting claws in and things like that, but it just becomes like an enmeshed part of who you are when there is that level of control and um, over an entire person, right? It's not just like, it
Mm,
wasn't just the control of what you did or, you know, your job or what you believed, but it sounds like it was control of your whole identity, your whole sense of self.
mm. Yeah, it definitely was. Yeah,
Yeah.
as I say, I was a shadow of that girl that I was when I first went over there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
What what was it like to get to the point where you could start using language like predatory and grooming and controlling? Because that's not usually a quick process, right?
No, it certainly wasn't quick.
Yeah.
Um, and I always felt too like I I carried the secret all
Yeah.
these years to protect him.
Mm.
Um, so it's like I knew that what had happened was wrong
Mm.
and wasn't, um, it was, well, I knew that what he had done to me was damaging.
Yeah.
Um, and you carry that with you. And um, so to acknowledge that it took a year of therapy for me to even just get to the point of acknowledging.
Yeah.
Like I remember that my first session with my therapist, and she's like, "You don't think he's done anything wrong, do you?" I'm really struggling with this. I'm really struggling.
Yeah. But I mean, like, why would you? Why would you think
Yeah,
that he had done anything wrong up until that point? Because um, he was the one who had all of the answers. It's that self-fulfilling prophecy, which is that you can't question him. He's got all of the answers to the questions that you do have, and so he is never going to not. Um, he's never going to be the problem in that scenario. It's not like
mm.
he's ever going to give you the answer that suggests that he is doing something wrong in any way and that his way is always the right way.
Yeah. Plus, because you trust this person so much
Yeah.
that when it finally dawns on you,
Mm.
it kind of it shatters your trust in yourself as
Yeah.
well. And I think that was also one of the hard things for me, is to rebuild that trust that I have in myself and that trust to listen to myself,
Yeah.
because that's been completely demolished. It's just um, all your identity, all your loyalty is wrapped up in this person.
Yeah. Was
Mm.
that a moment for you where it dawned on you and you were like, oh, right, that's what that's always been? Or did you feel like that? Because I've heard both sides of the coin, right? I've heard from some people it was like a lightning bulb moment and it was like everything just like turned on, and for other people it was a really long, slow fade to get to that point.
It's been a long, slow road for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
What has having that language though of what actually happened, what he was actually doing, how helpful has that been for you understanding all of that time?
Um, I think that's been one of the most important things,
Mm.
I think. And that came from people I went to when I first went and read Recovering Grace. I know this is in my story, it's out there already, but when I first read that website with those story of that other girl on there whose story was very similar to mine,
Yeah,
and it was like reading my own history. And I just like I was stunned, just completely shocked. And I remember I called my husband, and I don't even remember what I said to him, but he said I was just in this kind of confused, kind of shocked state.
yeah,
And and then you reach out to people, like I reached out to my sister-in-law, like, what do I do? What do I do about this? I just have no idea what to do with this.
yeah,
Um, and she told me, well, you need some help.
yeah,
You can't do this by yourself. And so going to a therapist, having that language, working through that, and having that language given to me has been incredibly important,
mm,
just in
mm,
naming it for what it is.
yeah,
Um, yeah, it's not easy
mm,
to do that,
yeah,
and it takes a long time to work through the ramifications of actually naming what's happened to you. But yeah, it's been important. Yeah.
yeah. How did having that
Mm.
language shift the way that you were then able to start to unpack and process what had happened? And, I guess start that, you know, I hate the word journey, but the journey of
Yeah.
like coming back to yourself and like learning to trust yourself again and understanding that, this was not something that you did. This was something that was done to you. Like, what was that like for you?
I think in not in naming it, in understanding what has happened has, as I say, it took me a year,
Yeah.
and at least a year
Mm.
of working through that. But for me, I also I was putting the blame on myself too, because by the time I had finished my therapy, all these other stories were coming up,
Yeah.
and I had been one of the older secretaries,
Mm.
um, and I put that blame on myself, like, well, I should have said something, I should have spoken up at the time. So for me, part of that restitution to myself, part of trusting myself again, and learning to trust myself, was actually doing something about it and voicing it and putting out what had happened to me, out there. So that's when I gave Recovering Grace my therapy notes, and so this is my story. You can publish it because I want to put it right.
Yeah.
I should have said something back then. I didn't, and I now want to go publicly and say this is what happened to me, as a warning, right? Because
Yeah.
it was just I felt that burden of responsibility.
Yeah. I mean,
Mm.
that in itself is like a hugely brave and courageous decision because your story doesn't involve, you know, this, abusive leader in the church down the road that only, 100 people in that town know. Like, this man had power and stacks of it. And so,
Yeah.
like, that is a hugely brave and courageous decision to do that. That takes an immense amount of inner strength to do that.
Mm.
Um, where did that come from?
I think I've always valued the truth,
Yeah.
and it's a huge part of who I am.
Mm.
And I've always valued justice as well, and also just that, sounding the warning bell. Like when I published my story in 2014, there were still girls working for him, and his ministry was still in its heyday. It was still really strong and thriving, and I got to that place of like, this is not right, and I don't want anyone else to experience this. He's not taking responsibility for it because I had gone to him first, as I was instructed to do, and you're raised with the whole go to your brother first. And
Yeah.
I know this was a huge accusation against me and some of the other girls who came out publicly against him, that we didn't follow scripture,
Yeah.
but we did, actually. We did. We had been trained in the Christian church to follow scripture, and we were still in that kind of, I want to please God, I want to do what's right.
Yeah.
So we did follow the right thing. We did go to Bill, or I did,
Yeah.
go to Bill first. But it was just like, I value truth
Mm.
above Bill Gothard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I value my relationship with God
Mm.
above Bill Gothard. I had got to that point, yeah, where that was more important to me.
Yeah. It's been, I mean, like you sort of said, you did your story in 2014. And so, 9 years later, how do you look back on, that version of yourself who was in that space? How do you feel about her?
I couldn't read my story for years afterwards. It was just like, it was overwhelming.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm proud of myself. I am proud of myself for, I'm not a, it was a difficult thing to do, but it wasn't, if
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
um, and I'm proud that I did it, because I think they got 40,000 hits on it,
Oh,
and
wow.
that, they had to buy extra bandwidth at the time for their website, because just kidding.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, that was just, it had to be done. I was just kind of in that position. But looking back on it, I think, gosh, I've changed so much, even in 10 years
Yeah.
since. And what a roller coaster ride it's been as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Wow. And how do you feel looking back on, like you've mentioned it a couple of times, but how do you feel looking back on photos of that period of time when you were working with Bill and that part of yourself? How do you feel about her?
I don't have a lot of photos of my time there. But I mostly just compare myself with who I was
Yeah.
before, and how long it's taken me just to.
Mm.
I mean, I'm still getting there, right? I'm still getting there, but still getting rid of everything.
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's been one of the most difficult things in my life to realize how much was taken from me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think, well, there's still. I'm proud of the way that I've faced it and I've dealt with it and tried to make it right. Um, and now I feel like I'm in a place where I can return to that person that I was
Yeah.
before I went to Bill Gothard. So yeah.
And what is it like sharing your story and talking about it? You know, it's like you said, it's been like nearly a decade, or like over a decade. I realized I just did the math wrong earlier with 2014. It's 11 years,
But
not 9 years.
oh, 11. Oh
I was
yeah, I was
like,
thinking 10 years.
oh my goodness. It's Saturday. I mean,
Yeah,
math is not mathing. But anyway, it's been a decade or so. Like,
yeah.
how has being able to share your story changed over that time?
Do you mean that how have I changed in telling
Yeah,
the
like
story?
what
And
does it feel like to share your story? Does the pain feel different? Does the joy feel different? Does the like growth feel different? Like what is it like sharing?
well, for a long time, I didn't cheer anymore. Like I was just like, okay, I've done my bit. That's it. No more.
Yeah. Yeah.
but but I feel like now I've got to such a good place with it,
Yeah.
and I really want to just I want to talk about the damage that it's done. I want to talk about the things in the organization, in the cult, that are avoidable, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also I think relatable for people who have been through it,
Yeah.
and not just IBLP and cults, but also in the wider kind of evangelical church, because I think there's a lot of similarities in many things, and often the evangelical church lays a foundation,
Yeah.
um, for vulnerabilities to things like the cults, the IBLP cult, as well. So yeah, like I feel in a better place about, sharing not just my story, but also the impact that it's had
Yeah.
in the things that I've learned. Yeah.
Yeah. When did you start using the C word with IBLP and calling it a cult? Because I mean, it's low, like, we're doing a lot of posts with like the collective at the moment around cults, and there's the Victorian inquiry into cults and things like that at the moment. But it's still really loaded language for a lot of people to use the word
It
cult.
is.
So when did you start using that for IBLP?
My parents actually used it before I did.
Oh, we love parental growth.
Yeah,
Nice.
I remember when my dad first used that word. I was like shocked, so
Yeah.
shocked. But I've been using it for a while, probably, yeah, more than 10 years now, and I'm doing forensic psychology at university. So, well, that was the reason why I decided to do forensic psychology, just to learn more about it, more about power and control and high control groups. So,
Yeah.
mm,
I mean, it's
yeah,
loaded language, but it also, for people who have been like, who've landed in cults and have left cults, it's also really powerful language to be able to use um, the language and the naming of what it actually is, and to not skirt around and use group and organization and all of
mm,
those sorts of things. Whilst it can feel loaded, there's also an immense amount of power for a lot of people I've found in using
mm, yeah, definitely. I mean, again, it comes back to that power of naming something
Yeah.
in your life, and actually acknowledging what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think the word cult certainly does that.
Yeah.
Mm,
And so I like to ask people where their sense of spirituality is now, because in a lot of these spaces, there's an immense amount of spiritual abuse that happens that coincides with other types of abuse. But when they're done in a religious context or God is slapped on as part of the reason why these things are happening, it impacts your own sense of spirituality. And you've already sort of
mm,
alluded to the fact that that's been a journey within itself of, you know,
mm.
relationship, anger, confusion, all of the things. But where is that now for you?
So my mother passed away about 2 years ago, and I had a dark night of the soul after that
Yeah,
happened. Where again I had to just kind of strip everything back. But I've landed in a place where I call myself a woman of faith.
yeah,
I still have a relationship with Jesus, but I am not a churchgoer, and I affiliate to no church in Christianity.
mm,
And I have found that my spirituality has expanded to such a point that it's incredibly liberating
yeah,
and powerful. Um, and I don't know if I've got the words for it yet, but
yeah,
I it's the old way that I was brought up and experienced was incredibly limiting and limits God or who you think of as God. It limits your own spirituality.
yeah,
So I'm enjoying that journey
yeah,
of um, exploring that.
yeah. And
Mm.
it sounds
And
like, the experience of finding a faith and a sense of spirituality that's yours, not anybody else's.
yeah, yeah,
And that's, I think,
yeah,
one of the most beautiful parts of people being able to have that freedom and that expansion to just be curious and explore and find what's
yeah,
yours.
exactly.
Yeah,
And there are no rules. I
yeah,
think when you've grown up with rules, to actually figure out and find and discover
yeah,
that there are no rules to this,
yeah,
it just kind of blows it right open.
absolutely. Yeah,
Mm,
hugely.
yeah.
Um, I like to finish these episodes with some encouragement for people, and I want to tailor yours a little bit to what would you say to someone who has been hurt or harmed by IBLP teachings or by Bill's teachings? Because there is a whole host of those people.
Mm, yeah. I would it's a lifetime
Yeah,
thing. Like I remember saying this in my speech at Decult. It's not something that is ever going to go away.
yeah,
It's always going to be with us, and it's a lifetime of unlearning. But the beautiful thing about that is that even though we've got these scars, and even though there's these things that have happened to us that we wish hadn't happened, that it's from those scars, it's from those wounds that we've been able to kind of launch ourselves into a whole new discovery about who we are and who the world is,
yeah,
and it's yeah, there's beauty made from those hard things.
yeah. Beautiful.
Mm.
Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story so vulnerably and openly, and for doing the brave work of calling out the bullshit and the harm of these big, powerful people who usually don't, because, the people who they've hurt are so scared and wounded and abused that they don't have that space to be able to do that. And so thank you for being one of those people who did call out the harm.
Oh, thank you for having me today.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Beyond the Surface. I hope you found today's conversation as insightful and inspiring as I did. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others who might benefit from these stories. Stay connected with us on social media for updates and more content. I love connecting with all of you. Remember, no matter where you are in your journey, you're not alone. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep moving forward. Take care.